Hey everybody, Jace here. Before we dive into this episode, which is about this awesome young reader book called Heebie Jeebies, I did forget to ask the artist, who is a graphic designer, Shelby Criswell. They, in addition to being a comic artist, they're also a graphic designer, and they did these awesome stencils that you can make jack-o'-lanterns out of, and I meant to ask them about it, and I totally forgot. But you can see them here if you're watching on YouTube, and they're really cool. In the story, there is a game that one of the boys plays, and it plays a little bit of a role in the story, and that's what these stencils are. So if you want to download them, if you want to, stick them on a pumpkin and make a jack-o'-lantern out of it, they're on the LRM webpage that goes with this episode. I'll put a link in the YouTube notes that you can go and check it out. Obviously, if you just go to the LRM online website, go to the Comic Source page, you can see them there as well. But they're really cool, and yeah, I'm disappointed that I forgot to ask them about it. But anyway, my apologies for forgetting to ask them about it, but I wanted to be sure everybody knew about them. If you want to check them out, you want to use them for a jack-o'-lantern. So on to the interview. Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of the Comic Source. Have a special spooky Halloween episode for you today. We're going to be talking about a young reader, a graphic novel called Heebie Jeebies. I have the writer Maztthew Erman joining me, along with the artist Shelby Criswell. So you two, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me today.
Dude, yeah, thank you so much for having us. I'm thrilled to get to talk about our book, and yeah, I think this is the first time we've talked about Heebie Jeebies with anybody
Oh
since
yeah.
it's been out. Yeah, so
Yeah, so just in time for Halloween, everybody. Link in the show notes where you can go and get it. Mad Cave. I'll link the Mad Cave website. I'll link. You can get it from Amazon as well. So again, it's already out, just in time for Halloween. It's a young reader novel from Paper Cuts, which is a very well-known graphic novel creator that Mad Cave purchased a while back, and they're partnering up. But I want to stress that even though young readers, I read it, I got a lot of enjoyment, I got a lot of chuckles, and it's also very relatable. So we're going to get into all that, some of the themes that are explored and what have you, beyond just, hey, it's a spooky Halloween story. But I'm going to throw it over to you, Maztthew. Why don't you give everybody the elevator pitch? What's the story about?
yeah, so Heebie Jeebies is I've been calling it a spooky story. It's not quite horror because it's pretty fun still. So Heebie Jeebies is about Blue and Herchel, they're best friends. They are in middle school or late elementary school. Honestly, I am forgetting if it's fifth grade or sixth grade at the moment. But they are kind of bullied losers that over the course of, um, you know, the book, they discover that there's a secret treasure underneath their middle school, and they are determined to get it in the hopes that it will make them popular and rich and solve all their problems. They have to work with a kind of uh, barely there janitor who has her own plans as well. So, and over the course of the book, they come into contact and have to deal with a variety of very spooky and wacky ghosts that are guarding the treasure to the school.
So that's a great way to kind of put it in a nutshell, but I do want to stress it's so much more than that. Beyond just
Thank
being
you.
a spooky Halloween tale, the friendship between Herschel and Blue is it's so fun and kind of relatable and grounded. And then the relationship with these ghosts and the janitor as it develops throughout the story is really cool as well. So I want to ask you, Shelby. Obviously, your cartooning is really great, especially when we talk body language for younger kids and facial expressions and that sort of thing. But when Maztthew approached you with the story, what what was the back and forth like in terms of, okay, what's the tone we want, and also kind of the character design, because everybody does have a little bit of a unique look, especially some of the ghosts, as it relates to how they died, which was really cool.
Right. Thank you, by the way. Yeah, so Maztthew and I have worked on a project before, and Maztthew is just kind of like, here's the basic idea, just kind of run with it. And I think that's kind of the best way for me to work. And so I think, I don't even remember, Maztthew, did you get me like very specifics on the ghost? I think you just kind of said like,
I I
There's
think I
one that takes his
literally,
head off, or
yeah, I think I literally gave you a list of potentially just names and maybe
yeah,
a few details of like kind of what I was thinking. And the really fun thing about working with Shelby and especially Shelby, but any artist, is that like, yeah, I love kind of giving away some of the creative control that a writer has to really allow like real true collaboration to happen because you know uh Shelby, just by virtue of getting to kind of create these characters from the ground up without you know a long backstory or all of this lore that you have to go through, it's just like draw some cool characters and then we'll make a story around them. And that's what Shelby did. And obviously there's more to it than that, but
right.
uh I, I think that's how we did Terminal Punks too.
Yeah, yeah. I think both books you kind of the main characters are very similar. They're kind of
Yeah.
just the weirdo kids like we grew up
Y-
as. And so I
Yeah.
just kind of drew kids that I would have had as friends or
Yeah.
I would have hung out with. And then the ghosts, I was just like, well, here's a weird one. One that has eyes in their back of their head or, extra eyes or can take their head off or and you did give me the clown character.
I did. Yeah. The
But
clown
I just
character,
was like, how do we make that scary?
the clown character I think we came up with the clown character during scripting. I don't even think we pitched a
Oh,
clown.
that's right. Yeah, yeah.
When we were writing it, it was just like, there should be maybe a clown ghost.
Yeah. Yeah. Every kid's afraid of clowns.
Well,
Truly.
well, the thing that's the reason that I bring it up is because the design of these and how especially the ghosts are so unique and like I said that sort of the sight gags that you throw in there are based on how they how they on their demise, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I was curious if that was like in the script. You knew early on, okay, this guy fell and his head got chopped off by an axe or what have you. So obviously he's going to be spinning his hand around like on a basketball, like on his finger, like it's a basketball or something. But that sounds like that wasn't that in the original story. That was more okay. Shelby comes up with these designs and then you go back
Yeah.
and kind of tweak it during the story. So
I
what's that process like, Maztthew?
I really love that. I think, comics are such a visual medium, and I think allowing the art to kind of decide where the story goes, if that makes sense. Like, I think by you having Shelby design the characters and letting Shelby really kind of have fun with it, I was able to take those character designs and spin them into the story in a way where it was all cohesive. By having the designs first and the characters first, it allows for the story to kind of wrap around them, and you don't have to do a lot of work that way to make something make sense or to justify a design decision or something. It's pre-justified because the story is being crafted around these really, really strong, beautiful designs. And I love doing that. I think it's a really fun way to work. I work backwards a lot of times, and this is, I guess, part of that, where I'll come up with a title or come up with a scene and kind of work backwards from there. And working backwards from character designs is like one of my favorite things to do because so much of the story and the tone and how people are going to get into a comic is through how things look. So, you can take a really strong character designer like Shelby and just from their character designs, you can pull stories from them. And this book is an example of that, really, where we had the characters in a very, very rough pitch. And when I'm talking like rough, I mean like I don't think I could name a detail from that pitch that stuck around. So, that's what we pitched to Paper Cuts, and they were really receptive, and it was a really fast process to get us working on this book. So by the time the script started to get writing, it almost felt like really we were starting from a blank slate and built back up the story through Shelby's designs.
Yeah, and the story really it has some sort of classic horror tropes. It's much more of a spooky story, like Maztthew said, and certainly suited for this age group. Not going to give anybody nightmares or what have you. There's no blood or guts or any of that sort of thing. No scary
There's some
monsters.
brains. There's some brains for
Yeah, a little
sure.
bit. Yeah, a little bit of brains on the girlfriend, which is fun. Um, but there are some relatable themes I think which are important to really get the conversation started with kids
Yeah,
this age who may be dealing with some of this. Single
I certainly was.
yeah, single parent homes or
Mhm.
being bullied or just not feeling like you fit in, that sort of thing. You mentioned Shelby. These would have been the kids you would have hung out with. Myself as well. Hey, I'm into video games or I'm into art or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not the jock. So certainly want to make it entertaining. But let me throw it over to you first, Shelby. When you go to craft a story that has some of these sort of weightier themes, it's not overt, it's not shoved in your face, but they're certainly there and again important in story to start those conversations. How cognizant are you of that when you're relating the story, when you're crafting the visual narrative?
I mean, I do a lot of time take my own sort of personal struggles, especially as a kid with this story. This is the first story for kids I've done. And so I took a lot of like what I experienced as a kid and like how I felt and tried to channel that into like if I were a kid reading this story, how would I want this scene to be conveyed? And I don't, I mean obviously I didn't write the words, but I want, like the mood to fit right and not feel too heavy, but still like, oh, I see myself as that kid, in their facial expression or like the way they're holding their body. Yeah, I think I try to channel my own sort of things into the characters. And I'm sure Matthew probably did with writing it too.
Well, specifically in terms of the visuals, you mentioned body language, and you certainly see that. I mean, Blue and Herchel are friends, they're best friends, but there's times where there's a little friction there, because those difficult conversations are coming up. Hey, we're being bullied. Oh no, we're not. That sort of thing. So I really appreciate that realism. So I'll throw that same question over to you, Matthew, because the other thing about this that I think, especially in the scripting, I never felt like you're talking down to these kids. Like, hey, you're bullied. You need help.
Yeah,
It's not that. It's much more kind of real and grounded.
for sure. And I think I have a son myself. He's about to turn 2. So I've been really experiencing what it's like to be a caretaker and to be someone who's constantly thinking about how their children or how children just in general perceive the world. I think that's like that's like the main thing about being a parent. So when I was writing this, my wife was pregnant, and I literally finished the script the night of my son's delivery and sent it into. It was like so. It's like I think that for me writing this book, it was about making sure that the story that I wanted to tell was there, but also realizing that as a writer, you have an opportunity when you're writing books for kids that are coming of age and are those really formative years where, yeah, you can talk about some important stuff and really try to articulate a worldview and a point that you have as an adult that's been living here and try to condense that and make that make sense to a kid who might honestly be struggling with these things too. I grew up in a lower middle class, low emphasis on the lower middle class home, and my parents got divorced at a kind of an early age when I was like 9 or 10. So I think that these things are really important for kids that are going through it to feel seen and to feel like there are people out there that made a book that they can see themselves in and identify with. And part of that is making the world feel as though it feels. Obviously there's not any ghosts, or there might be buried treasure under some school somewhere, but as far as I know, there's not any ghosts. So I think having that aspect of realism, a kid's going to have a friend, maybe a really good friend. Most kids have at least one friend that they feel really connected to, and building off of that idea and that relationship, and also like talking about the fact that kids see stuff and kids are aware, you know, kids know when they're poor. Kids know when they don't have the things that other kids have. And they articulate that in funny and strange ways. And, you know, when I was in the fourth grade, I knew my shoes weren't like the other kids' shoes. And that was, you know, I knew that.
Yeah.
And so those aspects of like dealing with those things when you're a kid and being able to empathize with a book that was written that feels like it was written for you was always at the forefront of my mind when I was writing this, because eventually, you know, I want my son to read this and hopefully he sees himself in aspects of these characters and gets something from it too that I never expected. And that's kind of the beauty of writing for that age range. I kind of fell in love with it with this book. So
Yeah, it's very important to feel seen. You know, is all kids are really asking for.
truly,
Sometimes, you know,
yeah.
somebody to
Even
listen.
heard,
Yeah, yeah,
they just want to feel like they matter.
yeah, exactly. Well, we talked a little bit about character design, Shelby. You mentioned this being really your first book for kids. Was there anything specifically in terms of your process, whether it was character design or your storytelling from panel to panel visually, anything you did differently because this was aimed at younger readers?
So when I was going into this, so comics take such a long time to draw. And normally when I do stuff for adults or, people, maybe teenagers, and I tend to put a lot of little Easter eggs and like lots of little details because I know that they're probably going into comics because they like the art and they've probably read comics for a long time. But kids are just like, you know, oh, I like pictures and I want to look at cool pictures, and comics are cool. Maybe this is some kid's probably first comic. And so when I went into this, I thought, comics take such a long time. I'm gonna be a little nice to myself and, not do such a detailed book. And I think that was the best thing I did for myself. And
Yeah.
I think it ended up being such a fun style.
Yeah.
I've read some books similar to this as a kid that have a very like cartoony sort of style. So this is way cartoonier normally than I would do, but I ended up having so much fun with it, and I felt like a kid doing it, which was great. And I
Yeah.
did a lot more like bold color choices and like lots of purplies, which I've never done before. And so I kind of had fun. I became a kid to do it.
Yeah, I mean that comes across in the art because the art is very clean. The lines are very clean. Um, but I think the other thing that it does, you telling the story in this style, you mentioned the body language and kind of getting that subtle emotion across because everything is so clean. The characters are really in the forefront. This is very much a character-driven story. Starting out with Blue and Herchel, and then you mentioned the janitor Madison, who we won't spoil everybody. Go and read it, but she has a little bit of a tie to the treasure and what have you. So I think it was probably, as much as it was fun for you, Shelby, I think it was the right choice for this story in particular.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I agree. I've always loved Shelby's work, and getting to see kind of this, I don't know, you did alchemy with this book. It's so gorgeous to look at. I love the colors, like everything feels and looks so good.
Thanks.
Yeah, and again, everybody, spooky, just in time for Halloween. The book's been out for a little while, but it is available now. Again, link in the show notes to go and check it out. So I want to thank you two for your time. And as we're winding down here, I do want to ask, have you had the chance to have any feedback, either from younger readers or school librarians or anything like that? Any feedback on the book yet? We'll start with you, Shelby.
So I just did my first comic show in a while. It is a comic show that I think it's like their third year here in San Antonio. And I had a few kids come up to the table and say, "Is this about ghosts?" They were just so excited about ghosts. And so every single one of them, and I said, "Yeah, it's ghosts." They said, "Okay, I'm grabbing my dad. I need to buy this right now."
Oh, that's fantastic. What about you, Maztthew?
Uh, I actually haven't had a chance to sell this at a convention yet. I have a very small local show here on Sunday that I'm going to that I think some kids will probably be present at that. But what did we do? Oh, I did a signing at C2E2 earlier this year we did like an ash can, like a very small,
Yeah,
like
gotcha.
4 or
Preview.
5 pages preview that we released. And the kids that picked up that ash can were so cute and they're so excited. And there's a little bit of magic when you get to give a kid a signed book and they're speechless. They don't know what to say. They're just in, who knows what the memory is going to look like in 10 years for them, but they're just so like, I don't know. It's a really fun, like little glimmer of childhood magic. And you get to see it whenever they look at your book or you sign up for them or they are excited to just see someone who did something. So yeah, I get to kind of feel out what it's going to be like this Sunday and when I'm actually selling the full released book. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, well, just in time for Halloween, everybody. And I do want to stress that not just for Halloween. I mean, this is sort of an evergreen story, with ghosts and these two best friends, Blue and Herchel, that are they're just so fun and relatable, and yeah, just brought back memories of being at that age myself, and a little bit of the wish fulfillment. I mean, what kid at that age wouldn't want to find a buried treasure and be like super rich?
I mean, just to go into your school at night and mess around.
Yeah.
That's not like that's the cool. Like I would like as a kid to do that with your best friend to just fart around in the school at night when no one's looking. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Doing what you're not supposed to do. That's what kids like to do. So, anyway, best of luck with the book, everybody. Reminder to everybody out there who's joining us, link in the show notes. You can go and check it out. Again, perfect in time for Halloween. This makes a perfect bedtime story. It's a little bit over 150 pages, so it's one of those things where, hey, a few pages a night, trying to encourage your kids to read. This is a really, really good way to accomplish that. So, any last thoughts as we're winding down here? I'll start with you, Shelby.
No, happy that Heebie Jeebies is out in the open.
Yeah.
What about you, Maztthew? Any last thoughts for our audience?
Just thank you guys for checking this out, and hopefully this piqued your interest and you check out this book or our other work. Shelby and I also have another book through Mad Cave called Terminal Punks, and we both have other stuff that we do when we're not working together. Shelby has Queer as Folk, right? Is that the title of it?
Here's All Get Out.
Queer as All Get Out. What is Queer as Folk? Oh, that's a TV show from the 90s. What am I talking about?
Well, on that note, if somebody does want to check out your other work, where's the best place? Do you have a presence online?
Yeah. My name, ShelbyCriswell.com.
Okay.
Same
for you.
Yeah, ShelbyCriswell.com for me as well.
I'll put links to the social media in the show notes, everybody, as well, along with the link to find the book. So if you're having trouble finding Shelby or Maztthew, you can go there. So again, thanks so much for taking the time. I really enjoyed the book. Thanks for check it out.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, best of luck. I think it'll have a long life ahead of it.
I hope so.
For sure. So.
Thank you.
Everybody out there in the audience, whether you're checking us out on YouTube or joining us on the audio-only Comic Source podcast feed, we appreciate the support as always, and we will talk to you next time.